Hi. So I thought this time I'd show you how we might make some prairie points for some texture. So I've got a little piece up here with these little points that I've stitched between two other pieces of fabric. Prairie points are not new. There's lots of different things that you can do with them. There's different ways of making them. This time I thought I'd show you how to make a continuous line of points from one piece of fabric. So it's all going to be the same colour, unless of course you've got a multicoloured piece of fabric. And so I don't suppose this is a new technique either. I just thought I'd show you how to do it, because it's kind of fun to be able to do. You might just want a short length of something, you might want an even longer length. So what I've used is a strip of fabric that's half the width of regular fabric. So maybe from a fat quarter you could cut a strip like this. So I've cut it 5 inches wide, and I'm going to show you how I mark it out and cut it to make a continuous strip of points like this. I think these are kind of fun. I think maybe even some short lengths as a bit of texture in a quilt would be really nice. So what we need to have is a strip of fabric, and in this case I've done it 5 inches wide. You could vary the size of the fabric, and I'll go into that in a minute. I've got just a white gel pen to do my marking, and I've got a ruler, and I've also got a square ruler, plus I've got some scissors. Scissors are amazing things, they cut fabric. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you. So I've got a 5-inch strip of fabric. I'm going to mark right up the middle, and I'm just using this white gel pen because it shows up on this coloured fabric quite nicely. And I've placed the ruler so that the 2.5 inch in from the edge runs along the edge of the fabric. Because this is 5 inches, we need to go 2.5 inches in to be halfway. So we do need a mark that runs right up the middle, and hopefully that gel pen is marking. Yes, it is. So I'll just move this up to get the rest of it. And then we need to start measuring and marking where we're going to cut. So that's just a centre line that gives us a guide to get started. And then, so what I'm going to use is my square ruler. Now you wouldn't have to, you could use any ruler you like, as long as you can measure 2.5 inches. That's the half size that we've got, and I need to be able to measure 2.5 inch squares coming along. So I've got a nice cut edge here, so I'm just going to come along here. So I'm coming along 2.5 inches here, and it should automatically be, if I line up the edge of the ruler with my drawn line, it should automatically sit at the 2.5 inch line out here, and it's looking pretty good. So I've got 2.5 here, 2.5 along here, and I'm going to draw a line. So I'm just marking along here every 2.5 inches. So now I'm going to place my 2.5 inch mark right over that line I have just drawn. And I'm going to come along here, and I'm going to go all the way along doing that, because if I want to use that whole length of the fabric, then I need the marks all the way along. So nothing too hard about marking this. I find these gel pens are quite good on fabric because they show up fairly well. You can get different colours in gel pen. You could use something else. What you don't want to use is a pen that's going to disappear when you iron it. We will be using the iron. So that doesn't meet all the way, so I'm going to be trimming off that end there. However, to get the neck, we need to mark on the other side now, and we need these ones to be offset. So I've got, because I'm doing 2.5 inch here, I need half of that, so I need to come in 1.25 inches. And again on the 2.5, so if I measure 1.25, I can see through my ruler where that's sitting. That'll be halfway along that square there, and then I put my mark there, and then I'm back to the 2.5 again. That's just that first one so that you can offset them. This is kind of fun to do if you're looking to do some little trimmings on things, a little bit of texture here and there. They'd be nice on a bag, they'd be nice in a quilt, they'd be nice, I'm sure there's lots of places, on a pillowcase. Hopefully you're all going to make something and show me what you've made. So just continuing on with my 2.5 inch distance. I only need the markings enough to see, because I'm going to cut along those lines with those scissors. I don't need to have them strong for any other purpose. So I've finished marking now, and you can hopefully see enough that there's offset squares marked either side of that centre line. So now we just need to start trimming away. So I'm going to start from this end here, because I started measuring from here, but we don't need this little half bit here, so I'm going to cut that away. So I'm going to cut along that centre line, and I'm going to cut along there and just get rid of that little piece on the end because it's not needed. And we can do the same at the other end. We don't need this piece at the end here. We possibly could have squeezed one more square out, but I didn't. And then there, so we've got rid of all the bits that we don't need at the end there. And now we just need to cut these lines just into that centre. So scissors work better than a rotary cutter for this because it's quite hard to actually stop cutting right on the centre line with a rotary cutter. So I find scissors an amazing invention. They cut really nicely. So this just takes a little bit of time to prepare. If you were wanting to make a longer strip, like a full width of the fabric, that would be fine. I would hesitate myself to make one that long because it becomes a little unwieldy, as you'll see when we start doing the other bit. So now we need to cut the other lines. So I'm just cutting the last line into the centre there now, and then we're ready for the next stage. So you can pop the scissors to one side. Now this piece is a little bit, as you can see, unwieldy at this stage. However, we're going to tame it. So I'm going to lay it so that I can see that line, that centre line that we drew. We can't really see the ones out that we've cut now because we don't need to, because we've cut them. So I'm just going to lay that down on my ironing surface. So I'm going to be ironing next. So I've got this wonderful wool mat which makes it very convenient. And so now what I want to do is take this corner here and of the first square, and I'm just going to put that edge there along this centre line here. So I'm just going to bring that over, and that should just automatically then go out to a point there. So you're just folding it in half diagonally basically. And I'm going to go up the whole side doing that. So you could make these smaller, just whatever size square that you're wanting to fold in half. You just need to make your strip of fabric twice that size. So if you wanted these to be slightly larger at 3 inches instead of 2.5 inch, then you would need to start with a 6-inch strip. And of course if you wanted it smaller you'd need to come down. But so you just cut your strip, your first strip that you cut is twice the width of the squares that you're going to be marking and doing that too. So I've gone all the way along pressing those that way, and now I'm going to do exactly the same thing but on this side. And again we're just trying to keep those points together and follow that centre line there. It's looking pretty good. There is a little bit of room to move if you feel that things are not sitting exactly right, but in general it should work pretty well for you. So I'm just coming up this side now, pressing those squares in half diagonally. It's kind of fun even just getting it to this stage. However, we've got a lot of raw edges sitting around at the moment. So now I want to come back and I want to do the next fold down. So this point here just comes back on itself to make that small quarter square type triangle. And I have found it's much easier if I go ahead and press them all to this point, and then we do the little bit that makes them into the Prairie Point chain. So I'm nearly finished coming up this other side. Just keep an eye on where the iron's sitting. If it's sitting on top of them, that's good because it's giving them extra press. Just make sure you're not sort of flipping them back as you go with the iron. So I've got to the end there, and that's all looking pretty interesting, and bits sitting all over the place. So now the fun part comes. I've got some fabric glue here. You can get different types of fabric glue. This one that I'm going to be using is by Acorn Precision Piecing Products. which is, it's a great little spot glue. It's really good if you're doing foundation piecing and all sorts of other things, instead of using pins or basting or things like that, or you can get other types of glue. I'm not really familiar with all the ones that are around. I just know that this one works really nicely. There used to be a product that was called No More Pins. It's that same sort of thing. It's like a basting type glue. So what I found, it works really well, so that I can keep everything together. Like this little chain here is sitting nicely together, ready to sew in to a seam or something, whereas these little bits here, what we're going to be doing is flipping them over and putting them in between, so we have to keep topping and, you know, turning them over, and then it kind of wants to just get a life of its own, which I'm not at all happy about. So I'm going to pop a little spot of glue. So even though we've pressed those points, we just need to open them out again so we can put a spot of glue on. And I'll just do these first few. So I haven't done the first, I won't do the first one, because what happens here with this chain, if we don't do that first one, it's open there, and you could tuck in if you were wanting to make something longer, or you want to pop another colour in, or any number of reasons. So don't glue the first one, but all the others hold just that bit better with just a spot of glue. So not the first one, but just on this outside corner that's going to be popped in. So it's really just a little dab of glue. It's like a little basting just in that corner. And you can do a few, get them ready. Don't go putting your hands on the glue, because then you get stuck to everything. So I'll just do that many for the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip this one over. So we've got it pressed. We're going to flip that over that way and bring that point down so that it covers over there, and then press it, and that dries the glue and holds pretty well in place. And then we need to flip this one this way. So this is why if you're doing something really long, it can get a little bit unwieldy. So shorter lengths and then tucking an extra piece in would work quite well if you did want something longer. So each time you've got to flip it over so that it sits within the next point. And try and keep that edge sitting as straight as you can, because if you're going to stitch it into something like I have on this one here, you want a nice edge to do that with. So coming along here, keeping it as straight as you can, keeping that little corner dab down. Kind of fun. I think on a little purse type bag would be kind of cute. It would be just all sorts of places, really. A little bit of texture. Okay, there's one more. I've got glue on there, so I'll just do that. So you can glue several at a time. The glue doesn't dry so fast that you can't do it that way. So you can see that that's how it's all going to work. I could continue on doing that, but I think you've got the hang of it now. So they're all sitting fairly well together, ready to sew that in. So when I stitch this one in here, it's really just including it in the seam like you would anything else. So you can see that my edges are all together, so everything is sitting pretty much as it should. You've got room to do that. You could have it sitting around the edge of something so that you've got the points sticking out. You could have it sitting in between something, in a quilt or in a cushion or on a pillowcase, or all the sorts of things that you can think of that you might want to use some continuous prairie points. And that was really just a little bit of fun, just to show you how you can achieve that and how that little spot of glue makes all the difference. Otherwise it ends up kind of like this, and it just is much harder to control. They just want to flop open all the time. But I found that little spot of glue really works for me. Thank you.